This is how I brow map all of my clients. No rules, just go with the flow. I like to work with the natural bone structure and the natural thickness of their hair and just try to not just create symmetrical brows, but brows that look natural and move with their face. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how I like to brow map. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christy and I'm the owner of Boss Brows. I've been in the beauty industry for 9 years now, specializing in microblading and microblading training. This channel is all about sharing my tips and tricks and business experience for fellow microblading artists. So if this sounds like something for you, make sure to hit that subscribe button because I come out with new videos every other Tuesday. All right, so I got my girl here with me, Danny, and she's been wanting to do her brows, so I'm gonna show you right now what I do. Okay, so I'm just gonna clean her brows. I'm just looking at the natural asymmetry. So most people have a brow that's a little higher, one that's lower. Usually the brows are gonna sit on this brow bone and then the tails are going to wrap around the brow bone, highlighting that brow bone, which gives them that nice youthful look. So when I'm mapping the brows, I really wanna focus on keeping with the natural movement of the face and the natural eyebrow itself. I don't really want to remove that much hair. I wanna work with their natural thickness. So I'm just going to brush their hair. So really it's important to brush the hair and see what we're working with. A lot of people focus too much on having perfect symmetry. No one is ever going to have perfect symmetry. All we can do is improve the brow symmetry. So I think they say they're sisters, not twins. I start by using my string to split the face right down the middle. When you do that, you want to go from the top of the head all the way to the chin. A lot of people use the nose as the determining factor of what's center, and I promise you, no one's nose is perfectly in the center of their face. Now I'm going to create my first line right here. This line is where the bottom of the brow or the base line is going to start. A lot of people don't know where this starts. I want to work with her natural eyebrow hair. So I would take my pinky and just hold it right underneath her brow bone and just slightly lift it up. I can see that that's right where her brow starts. And in this case, it's where her brow hair starts. That's one way. Another way is I can just take my pencil, roll it up her nose, and right where it stops, and it's stopping because that's where the bridge is of the brow bone. You can feel it right there. That's again where you'd want to mark that first line. So the next line, this parallel line that I'm creating, is going to be the thickness of her brows. Now, Danny, can I go a little bit thicker than what you naturally have?
Yeah, whatever you think.
Just a wee bit?
Yeah. Okay,
when I'm choosing the thickness, like I said earlier, I like to work with their natural hair. So in this case, she has pretty thin brows, but she does have, you know, a petite, slender face. Her lips are full, but they're not really full. So I think that we can go a little bit bigger to kind of complement her lips, but not too big where it's overpowering the face. So this second parallel line is going to determine our thickness. The third parallel line is going to determine the arch. How I do this is I give myself a little more slack on my brow string. So I take my middle finger and I put it on her temple just to give myself some stability. I just kind of roll it down her forehead to feel where that curve in her brow bone is. And then I slide it over. And when you slide it over, make sure that all three lines are parallel. Some people, when they are trying to make a mark with this string, they go like this, and that's gonna create really blurry lines. All you really have to do is hold it taut and slide it one direction. This brow, as you can see, it is a little bit lower, but so is this eye. So I don't want to completely raise this eyebrow to meet the other eyebrow. If I do that, what's gonna happen is the space between her eye, like the lid of her eye, and the arch is gonna be a lot bigger than the left side. Now, I'm gonna use the string to find the beginning of her brow, the arch, and the end, but you can also use a caliper. When you're finding this point right here, I call it point A, you want to include the entire eye. The head of the left brow comes in more than the right brow, so I can either remove some of that hair or bring the left one in more, which I am not sure what I want to do yet. I'm going to just kind of play around with it. But what I am going to do is frame her eyes right now. I find that there's a couple different rules to find the arch. However, the best one is just trial and error. So if I put my pinky right underneath her brow bone and I just gently lift up, see how you can follow the skin and how it's folding to the bones. You can see right there, that's where the arch is. I like to do it that way because that's just where her movement is, but you can also have them open their eyes and look straight ahead, and then you can go right to the outside of their eye, somewhere in between the end of the white part and the beginning of the brown part. Whatever I do to one side, I need to do to the other. This is what's gonna create the symmetry. I'm gonna check that just by grabbing my caliper and measuring the distance between the beginning of the brow and the arch. Wherever I measure on the right brow, I need to measure at the same part of the left brow. So see how I'm starting right at the head and I'm actually covering the body of her brow on this side? So I'm gonna do the same thing on this side and it is off. So we're just going to adjust it a little. Now they're even. Okay, I think point C, which is the end, is a lot easier. You measure from the outside of the nose or the nostril, and you want to come right to the end of her eye. Make sure you go underneath their lashes and hold it flush against their face and pull that string up. You don't want to let it drop. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Hold it flush and then just one glide up. I want to check my measurements, so I'm going to measure from the head of the brow to the tail, and I want to measure at the exact same spot on both sides. Earlier, if you remember, I said that this brow comes in a little more than this side, so I will need to adjust it just a little bit because it's throwing off the size of her brow. So I just need to bring it in about maybe like a millimeter, and how I figured that out was by measuring the distance between point A and C on both sides. And I had already taken a mental note about my point A on this side, knowing that it came in a little further and I was gonna maybe need to adjust that. So that's what I'm doing now. If it starts to get a little confusing for you, I would definitely recommend removing some of these lines. You also never want to show your client their brows once the pre-draw is done with all of these lines because they're going to freak out. They really will. Now I'm going to create the brow shape using the string, following those points that we created. So we have point 1, we have point 2, so that's the thickness of the brow. We have the upper arch, and we have an idea of where the tail is going to end, but what we don't know is where the lower arch is and exactly the angle of the tail. So what's really important about creating this baseline is not only holding the string taut, but making sure that it doesn't fall. See how her eyebrow, it's not flat, so you have to work with the shape. You'll hear me say a lot in my trainings, hug the line. So in this case, when I say that, I'm talking about the hairline. I'm creating my baseline and I'm hugging her natural hairline. If you let it drop too low, you are going to be microblading on her eyelid. No. I can see there's gonna be a problem with the tail because one tail comes up and over and the other tail comes down. And that is because her face is just shaped differently on one side versus the other. Everyone's is, don't worry. After I get the rough draft to my pre-draw completed, then I lay my client down. I find it a little easier if they're laying down to perfect these lines and just make them a little smoother and more dense. Notice how I hold my brow mapping pencil. I'm holding it perpendicular to their skin. This is gonna create a super crisp line. I move my pencil slow, just a little bit at a time. I'm not gliding the pencil. They're little short movements. It will help if you hold the skin taut while you're moving your pencil across their skin. If you're not holding the skin taut, you're not gonna get a really straight, crisp, clean line. So just make sure to hold their skin taut using that 3-point stretch. All right, so once you have the shape perfected and all of your lines are cleaned up, it helps to color in the eyebrow so that the client can see the actual shape. I found this to be really helpful because I have clients who come in who may have not been used to coloring in their brows, were really doing much to their brows, and this is gonna be a big change for them. So that outline may not give them a good idea of what they're in for. So, because I want my clients to be happy and love their new brows, I'm gonna lightly fill in between those brow mapping lines. I'm also gonna clean up the hairs that are outside of those brow mapping lines because that's gonna also show what the true shape is gonna look like. I would just try to use a color that is not as dark as the black. In this case, I'm using like a brown. Yeah, it's like a dark blonde brown color. So it's dark enough where she can see the shape.
Like...
You look so pretty. Aw, that was cute. Give me more.
Yes.
Yes.